Hello, friends. This is John Clan, third of episode 177 of Shadow and Flame with Magic, the podcast. And today we're going to deep dive into Extreme X-Men Volume 3, Issue 5, and then discuss the comics that came out last week. So let's get into it. If you want to follow along, you can follow on my TikTok or YouTube channels at JackoSIII. As I got both visual and then just photo posters, so you can I guess follow along. And this came out in June of 2023. We have reviewed issues 3 and 4 previously. And I got the great Ungwen Yoon homage cover from the Frank Miller Wolverine cover that has Kitty with the 3 claws and Lockheed on her shoulder. Pretty fun. And this is brought to us by Chris Claremont and Salvador LaRocca, the main team from Extreme X-Men. Color artist is Guru EFX. Letter and production is CV's Clayton Cowles. And our cast is Ro, Storm, their leader, Bishop, Remy LeBeau, Gambit, Rogue, Sage, Catherine, Kitty Pryde, Shadowcat, Rachel Summers, Kitty's best friend, Lockheed, her very best dragon friend, Logan, Wolverine, and Ogun the villain, their adversary. The Extreme X-Men have come to Chicago to help their teammate Kitty Pryde, who had discovered that an adversary she thought long dead, the legendary ninja assassin Ogun, still lives. With his psychic form seeking a new physical host, he can possess anyone to continue his battle against his enemies. Unfortunately, Ogun isn't the only threat they face. A band of non-mutant super beings known as Galir, allied with the anti-mutant collective known as Purity, threaten to annihilate mutant kind. Among their number, Alice Tremaine and the mini-sentinel she resurrected, Scrap. The X-Men split up to try to protect the innocent citizens, including a pair of sisters Rogue and Gamma have taken under their wing and disarmed the threats. To fulfill his own plan of vengeance, Hogan seized control of Galair's strongman Bestie Brute, using his powers to defeat Rachel Summers, the young Phoenix. Rachel's power was absorbed by Scrap, who neutralized the enhanced abilities of every mutant in the city. This included Kitty Pryde, who at the moment was phased through a boulder and her friends thought dead. Kitty lived for now, but will she be able to hold herself together long enough to rally the Extreme X-Men and survive without their powers? Let's find out. Chicago, Illinois, just outside the bells of hell. It has been a harsh day, mainly thanks to the mini-sentinel known as Scrap and the powers he's stolen from all Chicago's mutants, especially Rachel Summers' young Phoenix. It looks like it's about to get significantly worse. And so we see Scrap, who looks like a robot with like tendrils, and Sage and Bishop are trying to hold people back from getting hurt. We see Kitty Pryde phasing through the border finally. Thanks her powers are shut off, but we're gonna view her powers as being able to not phase, so she's naturally in a state of phasing. So that's how she's surviving this. And Lockheed comes up, who's very excited to see her. And so she and Lockheed start heading away. We see Storm helping out the pair of sisters as they're trying to get through a sewer. And then Logan is fighting Olga in Washington Park. And Rogue and Gambit are kissing as they do. And then Rogue catches up to the other members of the Galliers, which is Zanzu and Soulscream. Who I forget about them. And Logan is not doing a good job of fighting Ogun off. Neither is Sage and Bishop holding their team together. Because this is a retro series, the current, well, then current is dealing with the fall before the fall of X-Men, the Mutant Strike Force, which of the 4 one-shots is the one that has Kate Pride, which thanks to her Quiet Council days, she shows up quite a bit in the Krakoan era, which I love. And Sage gives a heartfelt speech and starts getting people turned around. double page ad here for Ultimate Invasion, which I keep going back and forth if I want issue two or not, because it's the first appearance of this new Ultimate 6160 Magic. But since I added all these Lockheed variant covers to my comic book League of Comic Book Geeks wish list, which I had like six, and now I'm at 43. So, which is a little freeing now that I'm like, oh, because before it was maddening. Like I'm so close, I might as well just waste, well, not waste, but spend $50, treat myself, and get all the covers. And now I'm just like, ah, it's way too many. But there's two covers that Kitty Pryde's on that has the aliens from Aliens that I sort of want to get, and then there's a Planet of the Apes cover that has Kate Pride on it, and I'm like, oh, I should get those two, three, because I do love a crossover. 7 miles north of the UFC campus stands one of the tallest buildings in the world. Scrap is the sole survivor of a new generation of Sentinels. They came here to kill mutants. That's their function. They failed. See the Mechanics miniseries, Memory Mark, which I love the Mechanics miniseries. Well, I would say I never, because it's spelled Mekanix, which I always read as Mechanics. Which, but then like I think Brett from Comic Book Queers pronounced it mechanic or mechanics. It's a harder lesson to when you learn a word and then you have to learn it correctly. It's hard not to break that programming. And I was like, mechanics? I was like, oh yeah, because they're engineering students. And I was like, all right. It was like a real light bulb egg crack moment. He will not. And so we see Storm has made it to the surface level and she's just hacking away at scrap. And then we see Kitty Pride, and now I'm remembering a blue sky prompt of your favorite way to travel. And now next time I'm gonna post this image of Kitty being carried by Lockheed's hind legs. And because that does seem like a fun way to go. If it's not hurting his legs, because it feels like maybe it could be bad. And then Storm jumps off a Scrap, who's like becoming quite enlarged. Like he's like, let's see here, 12 floors high, stories high now. And so Kitty catches Storm. So now Lockheed's carrying both Kitty and Storm's weights. But Storm's so happy to see Kitty's alive. And now they're going to work together. Lockheed's flaming them, the Sentinel, Scrap, and Kitty phases through Scrap to short circuit it, because that's how her powers work. Three figures become one. The two intangible women slash away with all their strength. Damage to Scrap's physical form is minimum, but the effect on his micromolecular computer infrastructure from Kitty's phasing is devastating. His control loss over the stolen mutant energies. Scrap is unable to prevent them from reverting back to the mutants from whom they were taken. That includes his adversaries on the rooftop. And for a reason, his pronouns are in quotation marks. Now Ogun is ready to attack um, our heroes and drops the host body of Beastie Brute and gonna take over Scrap now, because that's how that works. Because right then, back in Washington Park, Rachel's slowly coming back together. Sometimes, though, powers aren't what's needed, just a human gesture, a helping hand, the right words from people of honor who mean them. And then all the powers are back, so Storm starts lightning blasting people. Kitty's thinking about, well, she can do her part. Lockheed does some more warring as we see the Phoenix. And for whatever reason, when I originally captured all these images, I thought that was the last page. But then I'm like, oh, wait, reading this physical comic, I see a little Lockheed here. So I'm like, that's cute. Which I need to pick four images from this, but on our podcast of socials, SNFWM, uh, you can see those later tonight or whenever you check out the podcast socials. And so Rachel's talking down Ogun, and then And like any good X-Men story, like you take out the telepath so that worst case scenario, when the telepath wakes up, they can just shut down the battle and be like, okay. It is a kindness of like powerhouses like Storm who like can show up in any fight and then just lightning bolt everyone to electric shock um unconsciousness. But she allows the scrappers to get in their fight, their fisticuffs, and it's like, all right, it's a team book, you might as well. And so the day is saved as Rachel just shuts down Ogun's spirit and vaporizes him essentially. Uh, Kelly Thompson's Marvel 50 final issues coming out, which that's a great run. Magic shows up in quite a few issues of it. The next day is beautiful. The sky is clear, the sun is shining. Chicagoans, young and old, have chosen to set aside yesterday's conflicts in favor of enjoying the blizzard's aftermath. At the same time, back at the bells of hell, those who helped bring that threat to an end are having a celebration of their own. And we see Kitty and Rachel working the bar, which is fun. And everyone's just saying their goodbyes and congratulations. And Kitty and Rachel's faces are very close together for those Gray Pride fans, which I count myself amongst. And then the two sisters find little pieces of scrap. Oh, no, no. The sisters see Alicia Tremaine picking up pieces of scrap, and so what's going to happen as we get the end question mark? And so yeah. Oh yeah, editor Mark was Mark Basso. And so the next retro series is going to be Anocenti, Sid Kotian, Andrew Dalhouse's Storm issue 1, which I own, I think, more than half of those issues, and then X-23's Deadly Regenesis, which is a miniseries I did not know exists. But yeah, pretty solid issue, and great conclusion to a storyline. And, and there was like two of these variant covers I'd add from this miniseries. Because if I'm going to have a wish list, I might as well have all of them. And if you have a league of comic book geeks, I would love to follow more people on there. So, search for Jacko SII and I will follow back at one point, which is pretty much my role for any social media. And so let's review the comics of last week. So, spoilers for all these comics. So, Godzilla vs. X-Men 1 by Falmion Nessieze, who I thought did a great job of a 90s X-Men versus Godzilla. I was hoping there'd be like an Excalibur reference or panel where they've learned they're fighting the X-Men are fighting Godzilla in Japan, trying to assist Sunfire. But we weren't promised an Excalibur reference, so but for the most part, pretty solid issue. One World Under Doom 4, I thought was pretty great. Maybe the best issue of the four so far, and not just from like highlights, but from start to finish with Doom's fighting Dormammu, and Dormammu has cast all the heroes into an alternate dimension, so it's literally Doom versus Dormammu for Earth. And at one point, Doom reveals that he's a huge fan of Cyclops, and as he just uses a whole page of just optic blasts. And it won my heart over because he actually says the word optic blast as he does it, which I made a great joke. Feels like years ago now on Twitter about Emma loves it when Scott says optic blast. Like it gives her a thrill. And ever since making that joke, I want to say there's been a real movement to have Scott stop saying optic blast. You can tell this was years ago because I'm pretty sure he didn't do it during Krakoa, and Scott and Emma weren't even in a relationship, Schema, which I'm a huge Schema fan, so and it's just a shame they're not together now. But Jean's alive, so that complicates things. Speaking of which, you like that transition? Phoenix 11 was such a great issue. We start the new storyline where Sarah Gray's back from the dead. She does have a mutant power to bring out everyone else's latent powers. And she's been in the White Hot Room this whole time, but I guess a separate White Hot Room that when Jean dies, she's not aware of that side of the room. But pretty fun issue. At one point, Jean talks to Scott across the cosmos, and you just see Scott doing weights, which from every so often my imagination wanders to like, how much time are the X-Men spending time in the gym? Because of all those muscles they have, muscles on top of muscles. So it's just great every so often to see the X-Men actually working out, because it's like, yeah, they gotta work on that, right? Like once you get too close to Scott and he can't optic blast you anymore, like he's gotta punch you and he's gotta be hitting you harder than a regular dude, right? Like he probably has like cement fists. Uncanny X-Men 14. This arc is just amazing. The Dark Artery. Um, we find out Becca Calico reveal like we have a great one page where all the outliers reveal their powers, and she says she has her and her horse share a psychic bond and fiery powers. And Death Dream says, Becca, you gotta be honest. And then she gets this like chilling panel saying that Ember died in a house fire, and so she's not sure who this Ember is. Which Rory explained how he got to the mall that quickly. He just teleported there. But I'm really hoping Ember is a good horsey boy still, and maybe his spirit lives on in this fiery state. But I don't know, because I feel like if we can get everyone to love Ember as much as I love him, maybe we finally will get that X Pets title with Lockheed and Gambit's pet and Rachel's amazing baby and Magic's purple dragon buddy from Exterminators that we never saw again. I feel like there's at least Jonathan, the most real Wolverines. Um there was a Invincible Iron Man cover where Tony marries Emma. That there's a variant cover where Lockheed and Pizza Dog are on the cover. I'm like, come on. Apparently that was like a New York Comic Con exclusive. So that one gets pretty expensive. So I'm like, come on. I just need a cash windfall of like start chipping away at these because it'd be fun to get. Wolverine 9 deals with his mommy issues, and at one point, and it started off great. Um, as he meets the new Weapon X. Oh no, Department H's director, who's keeping tabs on him, but for whatever reason sent a goon of or a squad of goons towards Adam, and then he had to defeat them. He's like, "Well, this was an odd choice." He's like, "Oh, they weren't supposed to do that." But I was like, "Well, why do you bring a squad of dudes and then?" Let them take the lead on it. Like you should just talk to him and then have Wolverine like sniff the air and be like, "Oh, you have floating guys in the back." It's like, well, yeah, I wasn't sure how this would go. That's how I would handle it if it was my job to track Wolverine. But also, if it was my job, I'll just track him by satellite that senses adamantium to be like, there he is, and then just be cool about whatever he does. Um, And then goes to an old mansion his mother owned, I guess. And then we see um who's the girl Marauder. Well, we see her, and then we see my least favorite Harpoon, who, of course, was gonna during the Mutant Massacre stab Rogue, but then Kitty Pryde, the hero, stood and got between the two of them and took the hit and became her natural phase changed to being phasing all the time was her natural state, which writers, of course, will revisit not as much as you think they did. Like I think it's been two main times, but still, what is that? Two nickels? It seems like a lot. And then we are reminded that, of course, I do have a higher ranked least marauder as Sabretooth is behind this new story, this plot, and so I'm like, ugh, a Sabretooth story? Like, I'm not interested in it. And but it was a good thing. I'm like, if you're gonna do a story about Logan's mother, you can't just do his brother, Dog Logan. I mean, people either remember Jason Aaron's Wolverine and the X-Men, but I remember it. It's a great series. So I don't know. I like my X-Men to have some levity in it. And maybe it was too much on the levity, but for a moment in time, I think it works. And I still stand by it. And you have X Factor 10, the final issue, that gets wrapped up pretty quickly. And they published one of my letters in the back because once Forget Me Not was in the comic, I was like, I got them to know, like, hey everyone, I love Forget Me Not. But unfortunately, he doesn't appear in the issue. So I'm like, come on, really? And I looked around. I looked at every panel. If I'm wrong, let me know. And Archangel decides to work with Havoc. Lorna and Alex say they love each other, which I took to be like they love each other, of course, but I don't think they're currently in love with each other. And then Ultimate X-Men 15 continues to be great. Jonathan Lowe's X-Men on Blue Sky reference how this new character seems to be a brunette with a white patch in her hair, which I just took as like a, you know, Japanese youth in a cool fashion. But he made a point of saying, like, that's probably Ultimate Rogue. And I'm like, oh, yeah, another mental egg that got cracked and a little baby chicken came out. And I was like, all right, all right. So that's exciting. Like, what else can you say about Ultimate X-Men 50? Like, it just gets better and better. And you just run out of adjectives for it. And then next week, a lighter week, we're going to have Exceptional X-Men 9 as the team fights Mr. Sinister and Spider-Man and Wolverine 1. So we'll see if that's something to keep following. And then Weapon X-Men 4, which I sort of dropped out after 2 because I'm just on the move for Deadpool. And so I'm just like, all right. And there's no girls on the team, so I'm just like, all right. But it has Joe Casey, who I love, but I'm not in it. So one comic next week, Exceptional X-Men 9, but it's one of our favorite titles of the current era. So I forget which cover I got, but I want to say it's one of the variant covers. So yeah. So if you follow me on Blue Sky, it'd be just those three covers to run. I'll rank them Exceptional X-Men 9, Spider-Man Wolverine 1, and Weapon X-Men 4, which might be the penultimate issue. I don't know. Well, all right, everyone. Well, thanks so much for listening. Really appreciate everyone who listens through Spotify or Apple or watching on YouTube. And if you would tell a friend to subscribe and listen, we really appreciate it. We're trying to get our numbers up. And I'll talk at you next time. All right. Thank you, dear listener, and goodbye.